Hello and welcome back to the channel. I am Chris McMahon and I am so happy to have you here. This is the first in a series that I am calling Fat Loss 101, where we're going to dive into some things that are important to know if you're ready to lose fat. This topic is protein, everything you need to know about fat loss and protein intake. Now, before we get started, make sure you have notifications turned on, you're subscribed to the channel, comment below with any questions you might have about this. And also, if you don't know anything about protein, carbs, fat, literally anything to do with fat loss, you're going to want to click the link below and get my ultimate fat loss guide. It is guaranteed to help you lose weight without doing silly, stupid things you see on the internet. Because there's a lot of that, to be honest with you. Now, let's dive on in. Protein. It is one of the most, if not the most important macronutrient. Now, there are several macronutrients. You have protein, carbs, fat, and alcohol. Most people don't count the alcohol one, and they just lump it in with their carbs. But for us, why is protein so important? Protein is important because, one, it'll help keep you full while you're in a fat loss phase. Two, it helps you recover between strength training sessions. And three, it can help us build muscle as we are training or preserve our muscle mass as we're training in a fat loss phase. Why does protein keep you full for so long? Well, thanks to the thermic effect of eating. Each type of food that you eat requires a certain amount of energy to digest. Carbs and fat require energy, but protein requires the most amount of energy to actually digest. So technically, eating enough protein actually boosts your metabolism. So why not consume more of it? The other part of this is because it requires so much energy to digest, it keeps you full longer. And protein only has 4 calories per gram, which means you can eat more of it while staying relatively low calorie. So there are many different options out there. And again, in that fat loss guide that I talked about, I literally give you a shopping list of all different items that you could possibly get that have protein in it. So how much protein do you need? It's a great question. There's an equation that we'll go over later, but basically we have a range. A lot of people used to just do 1 times goal body weight. The way I like to look at it is, if we're trying to hit one specific number, it can be kind of frustrating because, well, maybe you're not used to eating a lot of protein, right? And if we have one number we're trying to hit, we might feel like kind of pissed that we can't get there. And then maybe we catch a case of the fuckets and we just quit what we're doing. So the way I like to look at it is using a low end of a range and a high end of a range. Of course, you can go over the range so long as total calories are equated for. If you are hitting your calorie range and you're hitting your protein goal by the end of the day, guarantee you are going to lose fat. So how much protein should you have? I like to use a goal body weight times 0.7 to give you the lower end of the range, and your goal body weight times 1 to give you the higher end of the range. Now, that's in pounds, so you need to do some math. For my friends who are using the metric system, sorry about that, but that's really how that works. So how much can you use? Because you might do this equation, and if you're someone who's in a larger body, who has a lot of weight to lose, you might be like, holy crap, that's a lot of protein. Well, the old belief was that about 25 grams to 45 grams was as much as we could process in one sitting. But there's new research that came out that actually had one group consume about 25-ish to 45-ish grams of protein after a strength training session, and another group consumed 100 grams of protein post-training session, and another group that received the placebo, just so they had like this kind of way to track everything. And what they found was the group who had consumed 100 grams was actually able to have an increase in protein synthesis throughout the day. So it like actually went on throughout the day, which the thought was originally, if you ate more than the 45 grams, you were going to like waste that protein and wasn't going to actually do anything. So does that mean you need to like shovel as much protein in your mouth during like one meal per day? No. But if you're someone who for fat loss chooses to fast, that means you can totally do this if you split your protein across 2 meals. Like if you have 2 meals and they're each 100 grams of protein each, you're going to be full. It's going to be challenging, but it could still work and you can still build muscle mass while doing that. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind as you're thinking about, well, I heard you can't. No, you're not going to hurt your kidneys. You're going to be completely fine. Your body can use the protein. It craves the protein. It loves having the protein for its amino acid pools. Cool, science terms. So my tip here, aim for 100. What the fuck am I talking about? Well, like I said, you might be like, holy crap, that is a lot of protein. So here's an example. Someone has a goal body weight of 200 pounds. They currently weigh 300 pounds. Their goal body weight where they want to be is they want to be 200 pounds. Maybe they want to go lower than that at some point, but 200 seems to be like a solid spot for them. So if they were to do this, they would do 200 times 0.7, which is 140 grams of protein per day. And then they would do 200 times 1 to give them 200 grams of protein per day. So that gives them a range of 140 grams to 200 grams of protein per day. As long as they're hitting their calorie range and hitting that between those two numbers, they're going to lose fat. But their current intake of protein is 75 grams per day. That's what they've been doing regularly. 75 grams of protein per day. That's way less than what we're actually aimed for here. 75 grams of protein is way less than what we're aiming for. And that's because they're not used to it. They're used to consuming more highly palatable things like a combination of carbs and fat, which are very easy to overconsume. And that's why their calories were so high in the first place. That happens for a lot of people who are struggling with their weight or struggling with a lot of weight loss problems, is the fact that they're usually not aware of how much protein they're consuming. And because their protein is fucking low, it's easier for them to overconsume those highly palatable things and drive up their calories. Because again, carbohydrates have 4 calories per single gram and fats have 9 calories per single gram. And usually when those two things are combined, it's very easy to drive up calories very fast and not to be satiated after and to go back for seconds and thirds. So we want to think about this. What can we do? Well, I like to actually aim for the first 100. Aim for the first 100. If you are someone who is struggling to hit your protein goal, I want you to hit at least 100 grams of protein per day. If you're hitting at least 100 grams of protein per day and you are hitting your total calorie deficit range. Now, I have a video somewhere all about that you can click to check out, but for argument's sake, now, if you don't know how to determine your calorie range, what you're going to want to do is click below. You can get my calorie calculator, and it's going to teach you exactly how to determine how many calories you need, and it'll even tell you how many grams of protein, carbs, and fat. But as long as you're in that calorie range, you are going to lose fat. As long as you hit your protein goal by the end of the day, you are going to lose fat because it gives you wiggle rooms with your carbs and fat. And consuming 100 grams of protein is better than 75 grams of protein. Now, also, protein progressive overload. When you're working out in the gym, you don't just walk up to the squat rack your first time in the gym, load up with a 2 times body weight back squat, and squat the weight. Like, you don't. You would literally break yourself. There's no one who does that, right? We use something called progressive overload, or even just simple progressions, right? First, we learn how to body weight squat. Then we learn how to squat with a kettlebell for a goblet squat. Then you could do double front racked kettlebell squats. Then you could do front squats. Then you could do split stance barbell back lunges. Like, you could do all these different things to work up to eventually be able to barbell squat. And then once you're barbell squatting, well, then you work on your technique. Then you work on progressive overload, slowly adding weight, week over week over week, adding reps. And that progressive overload is what allows you to get stronger over time. Now let's take the concept of progressive overload and apply it to our protein, right? So month 1, you're aiming to hit at least 100 grams of protein in this example. Month 2, we're going to increase the amount of protein you're trying to hit by 20 grams. So 20 grams of protein is like a palm full of protein. It's not that crazy to actually get it. That could be having a protein shake. That could be having half cup of egg whites. That could be having, let's say, 4 ounces of chicken breast. Like, it's not that much more. And if anything, you're actually getting to eat more, which doesn't suck when you're in a fat loss phase. Month 3, well, you already know how you got that extra 20 grams of protein, so now we're going to add another 20 grams of protein to be at 140 grams. Well, now we're at the bottom end of our range here. Great. So now you know how to sneak in that protein because you've had time to practice your protein skills. Because that's the thing about all of this in fat loss, is you have to practice skills. It's not just about following rules, because when you break a rule, you're like, fuck it. And then you catch a case of the fuckets and you quit. But if you're practicing skills, skills implicitly implies that you are going to make mistakes, that you're going to have to try again, that you are going to have to figure it out. And that's par for the course. I want you to remember that when you think about fat loss. I'm going to fuck up while I am trying to lose fat, and it's going to be okay. That could be something you say to yourself, right? I had a client the other day during one of our check-in calls who was talking about how they had kind of had like a backslide over the last 2 weeks, and it felt like they were starting from point zero again, like the ground zero. And I said, fuck no, that's not true at all. Because you've been working at this for 6 months. Now you get to go back and be wiser and know what works, know what doesn't work, and try to make decisions from there. So case in point, you're not really fucking anything up. You're just learning more and able to not make the same mistake twice, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times, right? You're going to get better at it. So month 3, we're at 140 grams, and you guess what? Month 4, we're at 160 grams of protein because you already know how to add 20 extra grams of protein from little things, like adding Parmesan cheese, like adding 2 extra ounces of chicken breast to that one meal you like having a protein like having protein powder mixed with Greek yogurt for a snack at night suddenly boosts up protein and it helps you with your sweet tooth. So we're at 160 grams, which is right in between that range of 140 to 200 grams. So you're feeling full, you're feeling satiated, and all of a sudden you're still in your calorie range and you're actually feeling full. Like you're feeling full. I'm bringing this up a lot, but you're feeling full because the whole point of fat loss is to eat as much as possible while you're still losing weight, and you often don't think about that. So this is Fat Loss 101 protein. We covered a lot of information here. And again, if you're like, what am I going to do? All you're going to do is click below. You get my ultimate fat loss guide, and it will take you through everything you need to do to lose fat. Guaranteed. It's the exact playbook I use with all of my clients. I'm giving it to you for free, and it prevents you from doing stupid fucking things you see on the internet. I promise you this, all of this isn't stupid. It's actually tried and true. It's worked for hundreds of clients. This works. I promise you, just follow this outline. And if you're not even sure about calories, anything like that, you can even click the other link and get my free calorie calculator. So there's 2 freebies for you in exchange for your email address. I'll never spam you, I promise. And look, if you enjoyed this video and you want to spend more time together, what I suggest doing is clicking the subscribe button below, turn on notifications, comment below with any questions you have because I'm always answering questions. I'm more than happy to. And give a thumbs up if you really enjoyed this video. So the last thing I want to remind you of is you're 1 day away from getting back on track and 1 day away from realizing how fucking amazing you are.